everyone, this is Pearl Pereira from P3 Designs, and this is Sally Skunk, and she is one of the blocks in my new upcoming quilt, which is called Into the Woods, which hopefully will be published in January 2023. And I'm sharing with you the tips and techniques that I use to make my shapes come out the way I want them. Now today I'm going to be talking to you about these little tiny ears. And I'm working with these small ears, and I'm using two techniques that I use quite often, and they are in my off the block applique book. And I'm combining two different techniques today. One is a multiple unit template, and then the other one is combining shapes. So we're taking two shapes and making them into one so that we can make both of them at the same time. And then the multiple unit is actually where we're turning different fabrics at the same time so that we can have a smooth transition from one edge to the other. You can find more samples of how to do that in my book. And most of you who are done at my quilts know that I also have companion products for my patterns, and those are already mirror image separated templates that you can print out onto 8.5 by 11 inch freezer paper. Now this is a pattern. If you purchase your pattern and your templates at the same time on my website, you get them both at the same time. If you purchase your quilt pattern at a quilt shop, then you need to send me the proof of purchase that you've purchased the pattern, and then I will send you an invoice for $35 for the templates. And the templates sets range from how many pieces are in a quilt. Some have as few as 25 pages, and some have as many as 56 pages. So it's a lot of pages, and there's a lot of things on here that I use. Now I'm going to be using my mutt, and if you ever see this in these templates, you know that I'm using this technique, and I tell you it's on page 77. And what we're going to do is we're going to be using these ear units right here, and you can see that they're quite small. Now, I actually positioned my templates so that when you're going to do this technique, you can use the templates just the way I have them sitting here. Now, on the base unit, which is the gray fabric, and I'm going to write G on here for gray, the top unit is the black, which is the ear fabric. And then I also want to write 26 here, because when we cut this out, the 26 is going to go away. So this piece and this piece, actually, they're aligned in the way that they're supposed to go together. On your base unit, you're going to draw a line on the outside, and you want that line to be nice and straight. On the ear unit, when we're turning the black fabric, we don't care about the rest of the template. What we really want is we want to draw a straight line between here, because what we're going to be turning is this inside area. So once you have this hand traced, and you can hand trace these from your pattern, trace it on the shiny side so that they'll be going in the correct direction, or you can use the templates. And if you're hand tracing on the shiny side, always use the black fine point Sharpie, because it's the only one that dries and is permanent on the shiny side of the freezer paper. Now, as I always do with my freezer paper, I always pre-iron them. Now, this is a piece of the threadbare applique pressing sheet. I just have little pieces of it. I've cut it up to fit the size of my mats, or just small scrap pieces that I use like this when I just want to iron little pieces of freezer paper together. Now, I don't iron directly on my Miracle ironing mat with the freezer paper, because the Miracle ironing mat, it sticks really well because the mat gets hot, so it's reflecting heat back toward your fabric or your freezer paper. and it will kind of take away some of your stickiness. So when we're doing this on our pressing sheet, we are maintaining all of that coating on there, that poly coating on there, so that we can use it on our fabric. So now I'm ironing my 2 layers together. Now normally I keep my ink sandwiched between the middle, because on my hand tracing, you know that might bleed, and the ink from your inkjet printers sometimes bleeds. So I always have my inking sandwiched in the middle. Now, if we're doing it this way, it would be, if you're hand tracing, it's sandwiched in the middle this way. And if I were doing it with my paper templates, I always put it like this. But for today, I want inking on top so that you can actually see what I'm doing. So now with this unit right here, we're just going to cut this apart, and you're going to take the base unit, which goes with the gray fabric, and you're going to cut that apart, and you're going to put that one right here. And I had another sample there. And then for this unit right here, we need to cut out the inside of the shape. And so I've already cut out mine, but just so you know, it's just, you're just going to be cutting on the inside of this template. You don't care about the outside edge of it. What we really want is we want to be able to get in here and cut around this inside area right here. But for time's sake, I've already got one cut out and ready to go. Now, once I have this ready to go, I'm going to, I've ironed it on my fabric, and I have a larger piece of fabric than I actually need. I'm going to use my fray block, and fray block comes in a tube like this, and then I pour it into my empty fingernail polish bottle. Now, these have never had fingernail polish in them. I buy them this way. I do sell them on my website because they are kind of hard to find. Now, I'm just applying a little bit in these concave areas. I don't need it everywhere. I just need it in that concave area. And try not to get too much. So I don't know if you notice, I did wipe it off before I went to apply it. And then I'm going to hit it with the iron because I'm impatient and I want it to dry quickly so I can go up, start working. Now, I already made a little hole in here a minute ago so that I could get in here easily. And then I'm going to come down here, and I am just going to take away just the slightest bit out of the center of here if I can. And it's just going to make it easier when we're turning this. Now, I'm still trying to maintain and keep all of my seam allowance in there. I just don't want to have too much excess, okay, because it is a very small shape. So we have this in here. Now what we need to do is we need to clip our concaves. Now, this is concave, as goes all the way around this shape here. And you want, these clips are really quite close together. I would say more like a 1/16 of an inch or less, because it's such a small shape, and we need to go around this piece, and we need that fabric to open up into a larger area. So I'm going to come over here. I don't think I did that one, but I'll come over here and I will clip these. I'm also not clipping all the way to the paper, and that is one of the reasons why you need a little bit more clips, because we don't want a raw edge when it turns there, but we do want it to be able to turn. So generally when you're clipping like this, you usually need a few more clips. Now, I did not get as close as I would have liked to right there. I'm just going to try and cut away a little bit of that paper because I can see that I didn't follow my line very well. There we go. All right. Now this one is ready to turn, but you can see this is a lot easier to handle than if I were trying to work with a piece that is this big. So now I'm making both ears at the same time. Now my applique stiletto, I have my starch. Now starch I use in multiple ways. Now I didn't pre-soak this morning because I forgot my starch brush, but I just dipped it into my regular bottle of starch there because I wanted to make sure the starch was flowing. Sometimes I use my 1/8 inch brush. Most of the time I use the starch brush, and especially when I'm working on small pieces, because now I can control where my starch is going. Now I'm starting over here, and I'm starting on the left side, and I'm going to come in, and we do need to iron the seam allowance and that straightaway there, which that straightaway is actually the end that goes under the head shape, so we still want to iron that. And the nice thing about working with concaves, and I'm going to make sure that this is down, working with concaves is that you can just let your iron do the work for you. I'm just spinning this around, and I'm leaving my iron on there long enough for the starch to dry. And I want to make sure that my seam allowance is ironing out flat, that I had starch on there. Whoops. Oh, I hate that when that happens. I lost my lid. Okay. And I'm just going to push that up over the edge. Nice thing about our little Sherry's Cool Tool iron is it really does help you when you're working with small shapes. And I'm going to, you coming out? I think you're coming out. Yes. Okay. I did not, I had left that sitting up like I usually do, and my brush was a little dry, and I wanted to make sure that the starch was flowing to the bottom of it. Usually I'll take it and I'll dip it in my regular jar of starch, but I just noticed that my jar of starch over there needs some starch in it. So all these things. But you can see how easily I was able to go around and turn the inside of both of those ears. And now I have both of them at the same time. Now, when it comes to the base unit is where we have the gray and the black on the template at the same time. For this one, you're just going to iron this down onto your gray fabric. And when I cut this out, I am going to cut this out with both the fabric on there. And I'm going to carefully cut it out. I'm going to follow the contour of the shape. I'm going to turn my paper, not my scissors, as I'm going. And you can see I'm using my curved scissor. I love to use the curved scissor. It just helps me cut things out. So you cut all the way around this, and then what you end up with is you have your seam allowance right underneath there, so that when we're turning our black fabric, we are only just turning the black fabric, and our gray still has a good 1/16 of an inch seam allowance on here. I have one here that's already done. And remember, this is 25 and this is 26. So this piece will go together like this. So what happens now is we're going to remove our template from our black. This is the part that is a little hard when we're doing this, because you can't really see. Even if I go to my light box, I cannot see through the black fabric to see my lines on here. So I will just hold this up, and I'm holding it up in the light right here where I'm working, because I can see through my black fabric enough that I can position my template in here. Another trick for doing this is, I almost forgot to tell you that, is to go ahead and put a pin here and put a pin here, and these are where the edge of the black fabric should be. And when I lift this up, what I can see is that I need to move my black fabric down just a little bit. I think I'm right on the edge. Boy, I got it almost perfect. I'm not sure that you can even see that, but my pin is right there on the edge, because you can't really see it, but that was a miracle. I got it in the right place. Now the hard part is just getting some glue on here. I'm going to be using my basting glue. Oh my goodness, where did I do with it? All right, I guess I'm going to use this one. I was going to use my dip dab because it comes out a little bit less glue, but I can't find it on my table, so I'm going to use my regular. And you can see I'm trying to just get this on the seam allowance, and I'm also trying to get just a little bit of glue, not a lot of glue on there. And I just need enough so that this will hold this in place. The hardest part is getting this on here. Okay. Now I'm going to take those off, and I can lift up the end over here and just put a tiny dab of glue, and a little tiny, and I wipe it away because I don't want very much glue on here at all. I just want the smallest amount of glue on there, just enough to hold it in position. I'm going to hit it with the iron to make sure my ears are dry. I wish you could see through here, but I don't think you can, but I can see the outline of my base unit around there, so that makes me happy. And now I'm just going to cut this out with a regular seam allowance. You know, a scant 1/4 of an inch seam allowance so that I know I have a nice good seam allowance. The gray fabric has that scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance because that rim of that ear is so tiny. And I actually made those ears bigger because they were smaller, because they have little tiny ears when I was looking at them. And photos of skunks. Not that I have skunks that I can actually look at. And this is a much larger area. I'm just going to go ahead and use my regular starch brush, and I'm going to flip this up over the top, and I will just iron. Now the main thing about ironing with your Sherry's Cool Tool is that you want to leave the rear end of the iron on the previous area that you just ironed. That way it will make it so that it will stay nice and flat like that. The main thing that people don't do is leave the iron on the starched area long enough for the seam allowance to dry. So no matter which type of iron you're using, you always want to be working in front of your tip of your iron, pulling the fabric over, and then allowing a portion of your iron. Even if I was using this iron, I would be having the previous edge right here underneath, and then I could continue ironing over to the front part of it. I just find that when I do these types of techniques, it helps me get the look that I want out of my shape, the perfection that I want in my shape, and then I'm always trying to figure out an easier way to do that so that it doesn't make it hard for myself to do it. And now I'm trying to share these videos with all of you on how to do some of these tricky little pieces that I put in some of my quilt blocks. Now, the Into the Woods quilt will be coming out next year in January, hopefully, as long as I stay on track. We have all the holidays coming up, so we'll see how that goes. But now what you can see is I have my 2 ears done, and I have this tiny little rim of black fabric that goes all the way around there. Now I always look at my piece from the front when I'm done with it, and then I can see right here that I have a little pointed edge, and I like to take care of those right now. I know some of you like to say, oh, I'll get that when I'm stitching, but for me it's just as easy to come back right now before I even take out my template and correct that imperfection that I don't like. And now there we have it. Now generally I will just cut this in half, and you just want to cut this in half right down the middle. You can see the edge of number 26 over here, and you can see my writing in number 23 over here. And the reason to do that is both of these ears are kind of a mirror image of each other, and they are kind of cockeyed in one direction. So you want to know you want to put them in the right place. So I'm going to cut this, and I made my template with 2 layers, of course, so it's nice and thick. Now I can just go in here and I can very carefully remove my template. Now the only bad part is that, yeah, there we go. I went in with my pen and I just lifted up the gray fabric because we don't want the gray fabric to pull out. Remember, we only have it in there with a very slight tiny bit of glue, so I want to make sure that that is stayed in place exactly where it's supposed to be. And once I get that ironed, then I have my beautiful little ear, a little fabric there. So just go in between the template and the gray fabric with a straight pen, your fingernail. It doesn't take much. Just get in there and just loosen that up so that it wants to pull out easily. And the main thing is that you don't pull your gray fabric away from the black fabric. Okay. And then we have our tiny, tiny ears. Gee, I wish I hadn't done mine already. I think these look better than the ones I did at first. Anyway, so now you go to your pattern and you'd get your head section, and then you would put it on there, and then now you would have your 2 cute little ears that go on here. The mouth is basically done the same way, except for I didn't put 2 pieces together. I just did a base unit and then the upper lip unit. So it will make doing that lip also that much easier. So look forward to more videos from me. I tried to keep this one a little bit shorter than usual. I filmed it like 3, this is my 3rd time, so that I could reduce down how long it was. Let me know whether you like the shorter videos or the longer videos in the comment. I look forward to making more videos for you on this upcoming quilt. So keep stitching and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.